Over the past year or so, we've had the pleasure of chatting to some of the best people from Fox Footy. And we're going to kick it off on this episode with Dermot Brereton, who pissed blood in a game.
Do you look at like modern day and you see Petrarca, what's happened this year with him, and you look back at what you did in '89, which is broken ribs, kidneys, spitting blood, all that sort of stuff. Dipper wasn't happy with all the attention you get, by the way. He said, I was the one with fucking broken ribs. I was the one with real broken ribs.
Yeah, real broken ribs. Mine still haven't healed. They still stick out like that.
But do you was that just the way it was, and you go and play? You're not trying to be a hero, I'm assuming. Yeah.
You knew the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there'll be somebody watching this and they'll say, oh, yeah, false bravado on that. It's not. It's the era you're in. You are in that era. Like my kids grow up. My son was really quite a talented footballer, and he's in his own era. My daughter, God love her, she's a lefty, complete and utter lefty. She's a vegan, and that's the era she's growing up in. That's what she knows. You know, mine, well, I ate meat and 3 veg 5 nights a week. I mean, so that I know I'm taking it to literal extremes, but it's what you're in, the era you're in, and that's what we did. We just accepted that you were running the risk of getting injured at the hand of your opposition if the moment presented itself. So, yeah, we did that. And Yatesy did that. They're somehow able to stay on. The one thing I'd say about Christian Petrarca, we've had a few doctors and the likes, and you can sort of understand it, because at half time I've gone into the urinals, because you drink so much fluid, as you'd be well aware. It was a hot day, and I've gone to the urinal, and jeepers, I've yelled to the doctor, nothing but blood's coming out, to my reckoning. So you clamp shut, say, Doc, tell me what this is. Bang, let go again. And he's going, oh, no, that's your kidneys. You got some real issues in there. I went, and? And he said, how you feeling? I said, well, not great, but yeah, I think I'm all right. He said, can you keep going? And I went, yeah. And I said, so what do you want me to do? And he said, drink lots of water and don't tell anyone about this. That was the diagnosis. Yeah. So that was, and that doctor, those doctors had nothing but our absolute best interests at heart, because they were able to weigh up the human in me. It meant more to me to keep playing than it would have a serious illness that I was capable of playing with. So I rationalise that these days, these boys that are playing out, and good luck to them. To me, their rationale is that's an injury which could affect me down the track. No, that wins, that takes precedence. And I get that, I understand it. Our rationale, as I say, you are in your own era. Our rationale was, no, this moment counts more. This one counts more than what comes down the track. This is what I want more than protecting me for future health. That's what we did. I remember seeing an interview once with a Russian weightlifter, and he got interviewed. Well, clearly it was an interview. And they asked him and said, how much does it mean to you? And he said, if there's one tablet that I can take to make me win gold medal and I die next week, I take tablet. That was that type of mentality of that era. We weren't that bad, I must say, but that sort of rationale.
This one's obviously a personal favourite of mine, because we're talking about the prime West Coast Eagles, 05, 06, 07, Cousins, Cox, Judd, Embley, Braun, all of them, thanks to Jonathan Brown.
He breaks away, probing kick inside the 50. Atkins was up, couldn't hang on. Guess who?
Couldn't do it again,
Judd,
could he?
Could he do it again? 5.5, I think so. I think so.
Oh, this kid is just... What do we say? He is exceptional.
You would have copped so after your successful period, you would have been playing against 05, 06 Eagles, which a lot of people have them, especially in the West, like a very good team. What were they like?
Well, it wasn't just that era. It was the pre. So there's always a bogey team, even when you're a good team. And ours was West Coast Eagles. So even when they were shit in the early 2000s, they would always beat us. You'd actually go and check the record, or we certainly had a lot of problems with them.
Juddy kicked 4 and had 30.
Juddy had 5 by half time playing in the midfield.
That's
like 19.
Wasn't Acker tagging him?
I think.
I'll see the Ackers running around him in the back line.
That's right. Actually, no, I think Mickey Braun was on him, because remember that was the time that Acker said, I think he's on drugs, because he could keep up with him.
Lethal knew about, obviously, Lethal knows everything. He's Jesus. But he knew how good Juddy was when no one knew Juddy, right?
I remember in the meeting, it might have been Juddy's first year or second year, and well, it's fair to say we were pretty full of ourselves. We'd run 3 flags, and we didn't pay a huge amount of attention to the opposition. And Lee, in the pre-game meeting, goes, "Hey, boys, I know you don't pay any attention to the opposition, but pay attention to this young fella." And he had Juddy's name circled, because he goes, because he can fucking play. Right. And we're like, "Oh, yeah, good on you, Lethal." Hey, by half time, he had our attention when he kicked 5 from the midfield. The boys are walking in going, "Where the fuck's that number 3?
I fucking told you. I told you.
But he was, I still hold Juddy as, so I was fortunate enough to play with Voss. I loved Wayne Carey growing up, being a centre forward. But I still think the height of Chris Judd was the best player I've played against.
And all his best highlights are in our jumper deck.
Yeah, I think when he was at the height of his career, I don't think there was anyone better or had more impact on the game than I played against.
Yeah.
So it was a phenomenon, wasn't he? Especially those West Coast days.
If you're watching on YouTube, you'll recognise this. That's Michael Gardner punching Matthew Pavlich. Let's hear Pav's start of the story.
It was always nice beating West Coast, and
was a rivalry real? Like we've had Mickey Barlow, had Ballantyne on.
It was real. Yeah, it definitely was real. I think there was. I mean, I played across 17 years, so there was probably different kind of. It ebbed and flowed. I think in terms of my second ever derby was the Demolition Derby.
Was that when they were wearing that jumper there?
Yep. Yeah, so
Gardy, imagine Michael Gardner in that.
Yeah, Gardy comes out throwing haymakers at me.
Can you remember that? Can you tell us? Like, you were young, right?
Yeah, I was 18, and Gardy had been out with a shoulder. I mean, both teams at that year had a really poor season. The bottom sort of half of the ladder, and Gardy had been out with a shoulder injury, and he had this big. He could hardly kind of move it. He's sort of strapped to all sorts, and I went down. I was playing full back and he was playing full forward, and I went down and bumped his shoulder. It was like, he's been out, let's just test, see what's going on. And then he just started throwing punches. I wasn't expecting that, and I just couldn't get anywhere near him because he's got such a long reach, and plus I had no idea what I was doing. And then I remember slipping over, which I think kind of helped me, because by that stage there was a free kick given away and there was another spot fire, and then I would still remember visibly seeing the one that happened early in that first quarter where Dale started going berserk, and there was just this all in, and I remember standing at full forward going, what do we do here? What happens? It's sort of just running.
What's the rules?
But there were no rules. There was just and then it was crazy that game. And then, we win by a point. I actually got knocked out later in the game for a different reason. Ash McIntosh ran through me. It was no rules that game. So that was intense. I landed in an intense, we hate them, we need to beat them kind of thing. And then I think it probably mellowed slightly for a little period, and then it heated up again. When did you arrive at the club? 06?
07.
07,
06, 07, end of 06. So when the Carr brothers, there's that sort of derby.
Yeah.
Shawnee Mack spoke about that on the podcast. Basically, he was captain, I think co-captain, and he talked about a meeting before that game where basically West going to fight them.
Yeah. Well, it was like, okay, there's a fair bit of noise going around. We're just going to go verbally and physically at every opportunity here. So at that point in time, obviously pretty well known what was going on, but it was just like, you know what, it's time to kind of went through these. And then I can't really, from 2010 onwards until when I retired, there was maybe a few moments, but it was more just we wanted to beat each other. It wasn't necessarily. Well, what was your view?
It was real. It was real. Like I remember playing in my first derby, and it was such a step above in intensity. Like it was as close to a final as you would get in a regular season. Like, would you agree with that?
100%.
I remember my first one. I remember sort of like you and with Gardy, but I was coming off the top of I was sort of a high half back, and just running into the first contest, and there was just bodies, just like men smacking. I was like, what is going on? Like, same thing. I was like, I don't know. You were saying that at a fight. I was looking at the football game, like, what is going on? I remember one, you and I hadn't written it down, but I was at one stage of my career, I was allowed to kick out. They used to, I was the designated kicker. Not sure what
Extra
they were thinking.
possessions?
Yeah, probably potentially when we won the Wooden Spoon in 2010, somewhere there. And I missed one. It was early in a derby. Kicked it straight down a Freo player's throat. Behind. All right, here's your chance to redeem yourself. Hit another Freo player straight up. Behind, missed the second set shot. Brad Shepherd, an 18-year-old, comes up. He goes, "Scully, give me." I'm like, "Get the fuck away from me right now." I get it. I kick it as far as I can. It's a turnover, straight over my head, goal. So 3 in a row. And I was playing on you that day, and it's probably similar to Michael. I just thought, well, if I can't hit targets, I'm just going to fight. So I just grabbed Pav and just started fighting Pav. Eric McKenzie's come over to save me because Pav's a bigger man than me. He thought Scully's easy takes over with Pav.
I can't remember this.
Eric he either got suspended or a fine. Michael Johnson came in. He punched someone. He was bleeding.
Yeah.
You were probably trying to get out of it. I started and then I just ran off. So that's probably as close, but that wasn't a hatred. It was
just more turning the ball over.
Yeah, it was,
No, but walking around the street as well, like it was almost, you couldn't quarantine yourself from smash them this week or go the Eagles or whatever it may have been. Like it was hard to kind of escape that intensity just because you're walking around, you're getting your coffee or you're going into the supermarket. So you kind of had the internal chat of we want to smash them physically and on the scoreboard, and then you had the external heat of it, and then if you make a few mistakes, it's a good way of distracting yourself from the mistakes by starting to blue.
Correct, and then get out of it, don't get fined, and then you're all good.
Dennis Pagan, one of the greatest coaches in AFL history. We've got so many people telling great stories about him. This one, though, is from David King.
Shane Clayton, I love Shane Clayton as a player. Just an honest, hard worker, run all day. Had been at Fitzroy, had been at Brisbane, come to us. A role player that you'd call him these days. But we were going through a patch where Dennis was bringing the kids on, but if they made a mistake, he's dragging them, blitting them on the phone. They sit on the bench for 30 minutes. And all the young kids just lose confidence. So then it's become really hard to win games because we had the best player in the comp, but everyone else was sort of slightly challenged to do more. Anyway, Wayne said, I think we need to go and see the coach and just sort out what he's doing with the young kids. And we're going, this is not a good idea. This is not good. Anyway, we go, yes, just come in with me, guys, come with me. So we go in. Doug says, Dennis, I think what we need to do is no messages. Just let the kids play, right? If they make a mistake, I don't know, just wear it. Just for a couple of weeks, get them going again. He goes, you know what, son? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I won't send the runner out as long as they acknowledge to the box that they've made a mistake, right? So we're thinking, walk out of the meeting, we're thinking, this can't be good, right? So Dennis gets in front of the group, says, boys, no runners anymore, just play, right? So in those days, the coaches' boxes were up underneath the Southern stand sort of sign. Right. So to acknowledge the box, it might be, almost got to find them, you know what I mean? Anyway, first week we go, 3/4 time, we're 5 goals down. Dennis can't send the runner out all day. He's like, you can feel him bubbling, right? Wayne would go crazy in the last, we get over the line, can't say anything. Next week, 5 goals down, 3/4 time, Wayne would go crazy in the last, get over the line, Dennis can't say anything. Third or fourth week, right? 5 goals down, 3/4 time, get beat by 10 goals, right? Well, we go into this post-match. Oh, no one wants to run the runner out, hey? No one wants to send the runner out. No, just give me all the good information. Tell me I'm good. Don't give me any negative stuff. He goes, mate, I've got blokes waving to me all day. Running down, Shane Clayton, running down the wing doing this all day. Both hands in the air like one of those bloody vacuum salesmen. The boys laughed. We've just been beat by 10 goals and we're pissing ourselves in the meeting. And we walk
Shane's in the meeting.
Everyone's in the meeting.
Shane's
the post-game. Poor Clates are sitting there. As if you don't crush a bloke's confidence.
It's a blow up.
So we leave that meeting. You can imagine the next 3 or 4 days, Clates, everyone's just walking around doing plates, So he had a great way of getting us to work against the problem. But it was just so funny and just so raw and real all the time,
2013, 14, 15, Hawthorn three-peat. I hate talking about it because of obviously 2015, but Jordan Lewis loves to talk about it. Here's how the dynasty happened.
All I've heard from over the West is Freo kicked themselves out of it, but I'm sure you don't see it that way.
No.
I'm
lucky to be in it.
Yeah, correct. So, do you have a memory from 13? Is there something that stands out?
I keep going back to 13 prelim, which for me was the greatest game that I've ever been involved in, other than grand finals. We'd had a long history with Geelong, like a long history, and to the point where if we had lost that game, I don't know what would have happened. Like it was a mental battle that we had to get over. So that fourth quarter in the prelim to then get ourselves into a grand final after losing the previous year was unbelievable. The 13 grand final, the only really one I think Ruffy's told is we were comfortably up at halftime, and Hodgie sensed that the group wasn't on edge for the second half, and he made this speech that basically went along the lines of, I hope Fremantle came out and kicked the first 5 goals because you boys aren't switched on. And sure enough, they came out and kicked the first 4 or 5 goals of the second half.
Cheers, Hodgie.
We're all looking around going, what are you doing, mate? So then we really had to battle that last half.
Yeah.
And then, so you win that 14 for the fact that we'd lost the best player in the competition in Bud.
Yes.
And we're playing them in the grand final. They've beaten us in 2012. They've now got one of our good mates and arguably the best player in the league on their side. So that was one of those ones where we were just mentally tough. Like there was no way that they were going to beat us. We were going to physically attack, not only him, which was not natural. You're right, bros?
He's good.
Which was not natural, right, to go after one of your mates. It just wasn't. But we knew that was the day that we just had to do it for 2 hours.
Right.
Anyone get sent to him?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
John,
Give him a nudge.
John didn't get put back in the back line until late in his career, so he wouldn't have known what was going on.
Yeah, no, there was some words said, which was put him off his game a little bit. So then that happens 14, and then 15.
We can talk about 15.
Yeah, we're gonna go there.
I actually remember. I actually remember that.
I remember it was bloody hot, and all the talk leading into that grand final was like, I mean, West Coast are favourites. They live in the West. They're used to this heat.
Well, I see this as your best win, and you can see however you like because you did it. But West Coast beat you in a qualifying final,
correct,
at home,
yeah,
and pretty easily, 40 points or something, like rolled you,
yeah,
right.
That's right. So we go, yeah, no, you're right. So qualifying final against you guys,
yeah, and we were hot, like you couldn't. Our mids got high, forwards kicking goals from everywhere, and it was like one of those games that. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And we just rolled you.
Yeah.
And we weren't expecting, you guys were favourites probably.
Yeah.
Maybe, don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so we come back and play Adelaide. I don't know whether it's Adelaide, but we knew we had to go back to the West. So that,
Because the Dockers were top 2.
Correct. Yeah. So we were written off after that game. We were written off. So then we do that, and then we go over play Fremantle, have a good win over there. I think it was like a Friday night.
Jeez, I was cheering for Freo.
Yeah, and I imagine that West Coast Fremantle.
Well, like if you think from our point of view, right, who do we want to play? We want to play the 2-time defending premiers who know how to win a grand final. Well, you want to play the Dockers at the MCG.
We only won by I think it was like 20 points.
Yeah, it was a couple of moments. Tommy Sheridan had a moment.
Yeah, that's right.
Cyril lurking.
Yeah.
I remember talk of the West, like, is there a chance they'll move the grand final to WA?
Yeah, right.
Every fight in the world
thinking.
Out of Perth would have been,
Yeah.
But you guys beat Freo.
So we beat Freo. We travelled back on the Saturday. My wife goes into labour on the Saturday night.
Really?
So young Freddie was born on the Sunday, leading into grand final week. So it was a really good week in a sense that, well, I had the house to myself, so I could just chill out. I'd just go into the hospital, visit Freddie and visit Lucy, and then we'd ask the doctors and everyone to see if it was okay if Lucy came to the grand final and brought Freddie. So I've got this great photo of Lucy sitting in her seat, the bassinet sort of on her lap, and Freddie asleep, and then the game just sort of going on in the background.
Wow.
And then when the game had been finished, as we do, you do the lap, and Lucy was holding Freddie on the sidelines. I thought, I'm just going to take him. I'm just going to take him out into the middle, and And you don't sort of realise how small they are, right? You're just so soaked up in this emotion. He was 1 week old. I copped a bit of hate for that, but fuck him.
You're the dad.
Yeah. And so then, I sort of had Freddie in my arms and got some great pictures of that day. And, great to sort of show the family.
Well, I'm glad that's a good memory for you, mate.
Yeah.
It's a shocking year for me.
You got your chance.
Well, correct. But 2015, can you remember, like, tactically, we can talk a little bit of footy. You guys, again, experienced side, won a lot of you three-time premiership winners, and you get beaten by us 2 weeks later. I would say from our point of view, young side, never been a grand final. One bloke, I think Sharad Wellingham, or Zave was with us as well. So it was two guys playing a grand final. No idea what we were walking into. It's like, well, we beat them 2 weeks ago, so we'll just beat them again. We'll just do what we just did.
Yeah,
like,
it was very much about the MCG. Like we played the MCG really well, and it was one of those things where you do look for any mental advantage, right? So you guys had never been involved in the parade. You've never been, involved in that week, and
I felt like I was Hollywood.
Yeah, and we every single grand final, right? We were underdogs except for 2012. So if you go back and read the papers, we were not the favourites. 2012 we were, and we botched it. But yeah, you guys were favourites. Fremantle were favourites. Sydney in 14 were favourites. And clearly Geelong in 08 were favourites.
Wow.
So that was always good motivation.
So the experience you think was an advantage?
Like, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. And it was. I can't remember the theme, but I think we would always break from the season, and then the finals we would always go away, and then we'd get really good content from that, because you'd sit around, a fire, and you talk about what it would mean to play in a grand final. And quite often it was young kids that hadn't played in one, what it would mean to them. And that would get shown before the game, and you'd sort of have goosebumps, and, all this sort of stuff was running through. But at the end of the day, we just said, hey, we've been here. We understand that, the enormity of it, and we just felt really comfortable in that position. I think if you look at the games back, it was, we were really calm on grand final day, which is always pleasing.
This is the greatest mark in AFL history. There's no debate, and it was right on top of Brad Johnson's head, thanks to Gary Moorcroft.
Were you under Gary Moorcroft?
Was I? I was under Gary Moorcroft. Asking me a question that you know the answer to.
Well, my head goes, well, what on earth?
It's my twin brother, mate.
What on earth were you doing down there? He took that in forward pocket.
That's an awesome point you made.
What were you doing?
Exactly. I don't know.
You learned your lesson.
I don't know. You know the good thing, though?
So it was you.
It was opposite to playing forward, right? So I had no coaching going back. And player just sort of said, look, he's on fire. Like Andrew McLeod, just go play in front of him a little bit and just run off him.
They put you on him.
They put me on him, because he was on fire. So I stood 10 metres in front of him thinking, I'll just run off here if he kicks one or two. And then so Scotty Lucas gets the ball. He's never kicked on his right foot ever. Scotty Lucas, ever.
Never.
Kicks one on his right.
No.
It floats up. And the next thing, I remember standing up off the ground and 40,000 people are giving him a standing ovation. I'm like, oh, shit. What's just happened?
It might have been pretty big.
So I look at the scoreboard and the replay comes up and it was enormous. Well, and Ben Hudson was my teammate. I remember in the back of my mind, did someone just cheer that mark close to me? It was Ben Harrison cheered the mark. It was that big, right? So mate, it was huge. It was enormous.
For what it's worth, I didn't know it was you underneath it. I didn't. So
that's good.
That's good. I was more focused on Gary Moorcroft doing the positive.
So that gets brought up 3 times a year as well. So we've ticked that one up as well.
Anything we missed?
No, you haven't missed anything. But that was enormous, wasn't it? Like seriously, to get that high and take the mark that he didn't play much after that, because I think he buggered his hip off the back and landed on the turf from the roof.
When Liam Ryan played in the Waffle, picked up as a senior recruit into West Coast, and in 2017 he was in the Waffle, and I was dropped and playing in the Waffle quite a bit. Could have been a 300 game player like you if I wasn't dropped so much, actually, John. But Liam Ryan took 7 of the top 10 marks of the year in the Waffle. 5 of those were on my skull. 5.
Were you on the same team or opposite teams?
Opposite teams.
Yeah,
I was just playing on a key position.
So you got him drafted.
And he very mates with flying, and he commented, said, mate, hey, brothers, you got all those hangers going on your skull. He's like, that's how you got bald, eh, brothers? I took that hair off your head. And he's correct. I used to have hair before I used to play.
Not like you, mate. I lasted one quarter pretty much as a back pocket, and then I never went back there ever again, which is kind of the limit. If you're going to go somewhere you don't want to play,
Correct.
play shit
May
out.
as well get marked
and
a century tape
you'll
on
never
it.
go back there.
Correct.
Lee Montagna played in 3 grand finals in 2 years, but this moment was the only one that's ever given him goosebumps.
2009, 2010, you play in 3 grand finals in 12 months.
Yeah, not many people have done that.
Correct. Correct. And you know, it's unique, but it's also an incredibly successful time for the footy club. What's your reflections on that period, you know, right now? But
Yeah. I mean, as I sort of touched on earlier, we feel like we've got a team that we don't have the medal, but we've got the bond of a premiership team. We've got the utmost respect for one another. We all get on really well. We still catch up once a year. We do it prelim week. Can't do the grand final reunion. So we do prelim week, but we all get together prelim week and catch up, and we all get on great. So, I mean, look, of course it's disappointing you don't have the medal. But at the end of the day, and we've sort of spoken about this, I mean, there are a lot of players that have a premiership medal that, you know, might not have the same sort of relationships and friendships and bonds with their teammates, you know. So that's probably as is important to me as having, you know, displaying the medal and having it on the CV is that we've actually got a bond as a group that will last us a lifetime.
do you reflect on the games at all? You'd have, not regrets, but you'd have moments that you think about, you personally?
Yeah, of course you do. But as I said earlier, I think my strength is I'm pretty pragmatic and pretty understanding. Like, it's a game of footy.
Yeah.
You know, miss kicks, miss goals, that happens. You sort of can't sort of live your life going, you know, what if? Because that's just the way the game is. It's what we love about it. You know, we probably the hardest part was the 2009 grand final against Geelong when you look back at it. And it was nice of my old man to sort of ring me about 6 weeks after. He goes, "Have you watched the replay yet?" He goes, "I didn't realise it was 37 inside 50s to 18. You know what you?" I said, "Yeah, thanks, Dad." You know, like we were dominating that game against Geelong, just weren't able to put enough score on the board, and we left the door open for that brilliant team to come back. That's probably the one that got away. 2010, we were 4 goals down at half time, and for us to get back and hit the front when Brennan Goddard took that hanger top of the square, it's the only time in a game of footy I've ever had like sort of tingles or goosebumps where he took the mark and kicked the goal with 5 minutes to go. And I actually remember standing on top of the 50 and getting like the tingles thinking, holy shit, this is real now. We could win this. We're 6 points up, 4 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go. So that was pretty cool. And then obviously went straight back into the centre bounce and they got a goal straight away.
And then the noise at that time?
Yeah, the whole moment. That moment where you actually like a sort of supporter or spectator, you're standing there and you're thinking, holy shit.
If you're a footy nuffy, so I'm a footy nuffy, and I tell a few sporty stories and put a lot of mayonnaise on them. But in a grand final, I've lost one, won one, but there's a few moments like that where like I've had like it's like an out of body experience. It's like I was wrapping my house in streamers, blue and white Geelong streamers as a kid, and now I'm like in the middle of the MCG and. And it sounds weird because you're in the middle of the grand final. Yeah. But like, it sounds like you've had that too.
Yeah, it's spot on. Yeah, you have. You're thinking this is like, that little split moment. You go, is this real? Yeah. Like, you know, running out the MCG, the national, that bit after the national anthem, because you know that's coming because you've watched grand finals your whole life, and you know when that national anthem finishes, what's about to happen, and you're actually out there, so you sort of almost wait for it and take it all in. So.
And then you realise Ross Lyon's watching down.
And then it's like, then you realise you can't just sit back and watch the game. You've actually got to go. You've got to go and make it happen. So you pretty quickly switch back into game.
Would you have won it if it does what it does now? Is extra time?
Nah, I say again, I don't buy into that because I'm the pragmatic type that goes. The ball goes back to the middle, and it's a ball up, and one team's winning that clearance, and from there the game plays on. So I don't buy in or subscribe to, we had the momentum and we would have won it in extra time because
still got to win it.
You still got to win it, and I understand how it works. But it's ironic that those grand finals, and this sounds now like a bit of like a woe St Kilda, poor us sort of thing, but in 2009, the grand final, Tom Hawkins kicked the goal and he hit the post, massive deflection.
Yes,
umpire missed it, called it a goal. So the year after was when the AFL said, hey, we can't have this happen in a grand final. We can't have a grand final decided by an incorrect goal review. Let's bring in the goal review system. We're like, okay, 12 months too late. And then the following year was the draw And no extra time. Had to come back the next week. We had 7 or 8 blokes that were shot. Mentally, we were shot because we put everything into it, and we were no good the following week. Then a few years later, we can't have a replay. That's unfair. Let's make it extra time. So we're like, oh, well, thanks for that. Extra time would have been handy a couple of years earlier. So so we're probably on the end of a bit of bad luck.
Did you when that siren goes, are you like, fuck, we got to replay this? Does that message come up at all?
No, because we'd never spoken about it.
Yeah.
So even for me, who was a footy head, I had this split second where we had the moment of like, oh, and then it was like, oh, what happens now? And what happened was, because must have been psychological, both teams really quickly sort of ran into their huddles to get together. So Collingwood did it, and then we did it. And there was a part of me thinking, oh, we might play extra time here. Even though I knew that it wasn't extra time. I was thinking to myself, maybe they'll change it and let's just play extra time now. So that was my first thought. So you sort of run into the huddle, and then very quickly Andrew Demetrio came out in the field, and the captains went over, and it came back and said, no, you're playing again the next week. It was just a bizarre, like nothing feeling. Like you've put your heart and soul. You get told it's your last game, put it all out there. This is it. And then it's an empty feeling. And what was bizarre about our grand final was for some reason the change rooms got flooded at halftime. So while the game was on, all of our bags and everything got moved to the other side of the ground, to the Auskick change rooms on the southern stand side of the MCG. So we had to walk over to these other rooms that weren't even ours, didn't know where our bags were. Half of our parents were in the rooms, half weren't. Half the parents didn't know whether to come and give you a hug, whether to stand back and do nothing. So it was just this real weird, bizarre sort of whole situation where, like, yeah, no one's really, only a handful of people have experienced before. And it was quite unique.
Was it really a technical issue, or did a question from Kath Loughnan really stump Peter Sumich? How so, Suma?
How so, Kath?
Are we going here?
Yeah.
How so?
Definitely.
We're going here, absolutely.
Okay.
We're covering this.
Okay.
How so, Summer? Right, this is a moment of infamy, really. And coincidentally, it's actually now my slot on AFL Tonight, effectively.
Yes.
It was on...
You replaced Sumich.
Well, I don't know. You said that, not me. There was a moment, we talk about gaffes, we talk about things that have happened on air, and I'm not going to sit here and pay anyone out. I just want to know a bit of insight of how all of that went down. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure it'll be clipped together for this as well. But how so, Summer? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Can I just start by saying I love Peter Sumich, and he's such a great bloke.
Yes.
And I actually ran into him after that happened at Crown with his family, and we had a nice chat. We didn't talk about it, but he's I
was going to ask, have you spoken to him
because
about it?
we moved on. I think maybe next time I see him we'll have a laugh about it. But he was great, and I really enjoyed, because you would know when you do AFL Tonight, I call you the day of and we talk about what we're going to talk about that night on air.
Well, that's why we're sitting here, because I've been really impressed with, you don't ring me for it's a 5-minute slot. You'd think that Kath would call me like, these are the questions. Like, I've spoken to you for like half an hour at a time.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Kath's probably like, just shut up, mate.
No, I love it because we get distracted and I start picking your brain about things.
Yeah.
And I did the same with Sumich. And so I really liked getting to know him and then liked chatting to him and doing those interviews. But this one interview in particular, so he had, like you and I, we had spoken that day for a good 20 minutes or so, and he always came to the party with ideas and stuff, which I always really rate and respect. And he said, all right, and we'll talk about Fremantle, and I'll talk about their game plan, because I think they could make a few tweaks or something.
Yes.
I think
Tinker.
this is correct. Yeah, tinker. And I said, no worries. So, like, he knew the questions that were coming and he was totally prepared. The problem with the AFL Tonight setup is there's a delay with guests. So there's and which is why I said to you when we started with AFL Tonight, I was like, don't really try to do the banter thing because it's just awkward. There's a delay and it will come across lame on air. Anyway,
Wait a while, Western Australia.
Yeah, so far
Coming
away.
across the cables.
So he had, we'd gone through the first few questions and we got to the Freo game plan one. And I think from memory, he gave me his answer and I was just naturally intrigued to know more.
Yes.
And so I said, how so? But then he couldn't really hear me. I think there were some technical issues. And I've just gone again with the question. If it was any other team, I probably would have just stopped and pushed on and I don't know what I would have done. But because it was Fremantle, I was a little
really
bit
wanted
more
to know.
intrigued.
You're a Fremantle fan.
And yeah, exactly. And so I just kept going. knowing there's a delay too. So I was like, this is going to come across as really lame, like for the audience, but I just want to know. And so I kept going, and then his line was dropping out, and then he could hear me. And anyway, I actually got off air from that interview being like, oh, that would have been awkward, but whatever, nothing you can do about it now. Yes. Went home, and then I don't know, had dinner, and then just checked my phone, and I was like, what has happened here? What did I say? Just thinking worst case scenario, like, did I swear? Did I do something? And then I've watched it back, and I'm like, oh no. And I felt so bad for Suma because again, what I was saying before, I want people to walk away from interviews with me feeling good about themselves and like they've done a good job and that, no harm's been done and carry on with your life. But that obviously blew up on social media and became a bit of a joke. And I still get people tweeting me sometimes. How so? Oh, gosh.
That's great. Yes, I agree with you. It's a bloody hard job to do when you're. Again, people see what they see on TV. They see Summer sitting there. It looks like, well, of course he can hear what's going on. But there's a delay. Maybe he doesn't hear it the first time. Maybe he does the second time. Maybe he's trying to come up with his answer. But there's a lot going on. There's just a lot more going on. So I have some empathy for it, but it is very funny.
I've got a theory. I'm just going to say it. You guys, have Suma and you know him. I don't. I fully reckon he heard it and just didn't have an answer. Because
can we confirm or deny?
Because look, you don't have to say whether that's. I legitimately reckon he heard it and he was like, I don't really have an answer, and played the sorry, because I've seen people do that, and I'm pretty sure I've done that before. And you're just pretending like you can't hear, and you just hope that they're like, just hurry up, stop, and then you persist. So you're like, how so?
I know. And if we were talking about Geelong or Port Adelaide, I probably would have just been like, you know what? Thanks, Suma, for your time. I think we've got some technical difficulties. See you next week. Because it was free. I was like, no, tell me.
You asked 4 times.
Please, Kath, move on.
Go, Kath.
And then you laughed as well. There's just so much. There's so
much going on.
Yeah, but like anything in life, people make mistakes. And if you can have a laugh about it, not be too filthy on it, I think it's good.
Props to him to just committing to, if that was the bit that he knew that he could hear and he just didn't have an answer, he just steadfast.
Yeah, okay, I rate that. That's a good way to look at it.
And finally, from our very own Will Schofield, who talks about the end of 2010 and the start of 2011 for the West Coast Eagles, what they did differently. Bottom of the ladder to a final. How'd they do it? 2011, make the prelim off the back of Wooden Spoon. Doesn't happen very often for a team to go from the very bottom to then just, we've seen Hawthorn do it this year to a degree. What was the big change then between 2010 and 2011?
2010 and 2011. 2010, it was interesting that, played 20 games in that year and we win the Spoon. We had a lot of injuries late in that year. Senior players, they sent them off to surgery early. Looking back at it, it was like Q in the rack probably early. And they thought, well, let's go and get this fixed up. Let's make a big run next year. We also, I'm pretty sure that was the off season that senior players stayed away from the group for a certain amount of time.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Were you involved in that or you missed
Correct.
out? You were involved.
Yeah.
So
I was
2010.
an exception. I got in the group early.
So 2010 you were in it. You'd been 23.
Yeah. I missed all of 2010 with injury.
That's why I won the Spoon.
Yeah. That's why we won the Spoon. Yeah, that's why we won the Spoon.
So you would have been driving this hard. The senior players been away from the group.
Well, no, I wasn't driving it. But we were on the back of quite a few senior players getting injured and not getting through the full season.
Like
and
Coxie,
you know how it
Andrews,
was in
Curry.
those mid-2000 years under Woosher, and pre-season was everything. We would be driven to exhaustion and then play a full season, all finals, and then basically have 4 weeks off and start again.
Yeah.
And so they thought, well, obviously this, the longevity of our players is probably the most important thing. So I remember every session we'd go down, the senior players in pre-season of 2011, and go, boys, we better play awesome this year because then they'll keep doing this. And the boys had a great year. To their credit, all of our senior players stood up. I think Walshy came in maybe that year and we changed our game style a little bit. It was very pressure-based.
But what it
Some
did,
of our young players stood up.
What it did, and you wouldn't have known this because you weren't there, but when we had to train by ourselves, there was no senior players on the track. There was no one there to fall back on. What's going on? What's wrong with the drill? What are we going to do? What's the outcome? There's no voice. So it immediately got that group of players, which a lot of them go on to be a part of this successful back end of the 2010s.
Yeah.
Of, and like Scott Selwood's not there in the end, but like, Scott Selwood, Luke Shuey, Brad Ebert, myself, Nick Nananui, even like Prudis, Hearn, Kennedy.
Good point, yeah.
Like all those guys who are really young at that stage spent an entire preseason without our 10 most senior players there for a lot of the major sessions.
Mm.
And you guys would go and train off-site, get your work in. You guys were fresh and performing and guns, and we were learning to lead, basically. And
that's a great point.
And then, off the back of that, pull it all together. You got a young group that's learnt to lead, and you put that together with a high-performing senior players, some of them premiership stars, and you get 2011, which was prelim. Yeah, we lost to Geelong in the prelim at MCG. It was a cool run. I was a running backman back then. Bit of a different role to what I finished my career in, but used to run and bounce a lot back in those days.